to live a prolific and a balanced and a creative life, then that must be possible for everybody. I remember as a depressed guy reading everything, Shaun, and thinking, I'm going to find out how this works. You know, I'm going to find out what's wrong with me. I'm going to find out why this feeling is in me and I'm possessed by it. And I'm trying to run it out, and I'm trying to scrub it out of me in the shower, and I'm trying to beg it out of me. And I'm waking at 4 a.m. in a cold sweat, and I'm just thinking I can't go on. I just thought I'm going to find out about this. And every book I read, every book I picked up that promised in the blurb to tell me the truth, didn't tell me the truth. They all either hid from the truth or they didn't know the truth. And I remember promising myself, when I find the truth, I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to tell everybody, because there are other people out there just like me. And I didn't realise it at the time, but I triggered on the secret to the tree of life. You know, if you look at Kabbalah, the secret to the tree of life is that if we want abundance, we need to bring it down in order to share it. So if we can bring it down in order to share, it will be never ending, it'll be infinite. So I triggered on that by accident. If you show me what the truth is, I will share it with everybody. And that, of course, the environment heard me. It put me through all of this. I built a fear pyramid. I confronted all the things I was afraid of. My ultimate fear was the fear of violent confrontation. So I took a job as a bouncer, and I started to write about it, and I started to teach it. And as I went deeper and deeper, because when I started to question it, I remember talking to a couple of my friends and saying, are you fed up of kicking people in the head? Are you fed up of kicking people's teeth out? I kicked somebody's teeth out last night, and his girlfriend was crying and crying and crying and trying to pick what was left of his face up in a white hanky. I said, this, I don't care how you paint it, it isn't good. That's somebody's sister, that's somebody's wife. You know, that guy's got to go home to his kids. And I just remember feeling sickened by it. And I said to my friend, you know, there must be more. And I started to look for more. And that, you know, again, the environment heard me and it started to bring me towards metaphysics. Yeah, of course, these are monsters. They're all your own projections. They're all in you. The sickness is in you. I started to be led to the different books, to better books, to not just the Waterstones front of shelf, but, you know, Blake and Milton and Dante, and then going, well, where are they getting their stuff from? Well, they got it from the Old Testament. They got it from the Gita. You know, they got it from the Nitnem, you know. So I go, well, let's go into them. And then you go into the Bibles and you realise the Bibles are just the revealed works. There are hidden works. So you start studying the exegesis, and then you're really, really, really inside. And then it's frightening because you're going, fucking hell, I've got so much shit in me that I've got to clean out. I want more consciousness. I want more awareness. I want to be able to see more. I want to be able to understand more. Instead of using my hands to knock somebody's teeth out, I want to be able to use my hands to heal somebody. Instead of using my voice to frighten somebody, I want to be able to use my voice to deliver inspiration, to deliver aspiration. I want it to be didactic. You know, I want it to be intercessionary. I want people to listen to it and hear something beyond me, beyond this tiny little speck called Geoff Thompson. I want to be a channel for something bigger. And this voice is saying to me, you can do all that. You can have as much of me as you want. You've got to make room. You've got to win back your territories. You know, you've still got an addiction to sexual pornography. You're still jealous. You're still gossiping. You haven't even got control of your tongue. You think you're a big man. You haven't got control of your tongue. Someone beat the car at you yesterday and pulled you out of centre. Where's your power? You know, you're frightened to let go of your right hand. You're frightened to let go of your niwaza, your judo. So we want to take you beyond that. We want to take you to a place where that's not necessary. Just your presence in a room will ripple out and act as a healing effect. So it's kind of saying you can have all of that. That's all available. But to get to that, you have to make room. You have to win back your own territories. You have to stop projecting out and saying it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, it's the government, it's Donald Trump. It's all these people. You've got to come back and go, am I aligned? Am I congruent? You know, are the things in my life still that I don't want to see in the newspaper tomorrow? Can I say I'm fully congruent? Until I can say I'm fully congruent, I've got no business worrying about what other people are doing wrong. The business is my own repentance. And my own repentance, I know that sounds biblical, the repentance is about me repairing, me returning back to my own centre, me returning back to my own autonomy, me returning back to my own will. Me, like Odysseus, who comes back from the Trojan Wars to his kingdom at Ithaca to realise it's overrun. It's overrun by monsters and by vagabonds. And he walks into his own kingdom and nobody even recognises him. Even his wife don't recognise him. It's a great allegory. Got to win his kingdom back. Odysseus is one of the, it's one of the great allegories about waking up and going, I'm awake, I'm in this kingdom, but I'm not in charge of this kingdom. I'm not even recognising this whole kingdom. I'm having sand kicked in my face every day by too much food, too much gossip, too much pornography, too much violence. Got to win this kingdom back. I want to at least get up in the morning and try and live like the saint. I fail every day. I know I do. I know I still fail every day. I still have things coming to me that I'm working on. But that's, I take solace from the fact that the saints, even at the level of sainthood, were still tripping up.
It's great that you've had so many epiphanies and you've got this wealth of knowledge to share with people. And I'm absolutely fascinated. I think I've read some of the similar books during my Arizona incarceration. But let's go back then and look at the trajectory, because you said you didn't mind talking about your abuse.
Yeah.
How long did the abuse last, and what were you like before it, and then how did it change you at that period? I
would say that the abuse was one night.
Okay.
That wasn't the damage, although that damaged me. It was the year of grooming that changed me. That when it climbed inside me like a parasite, like a possession, and then this night of abuse by this guy that I idolised, and I've lost most of the night. I only know what I woke up to, but I've lost most of the night. I've never been able to retrieve it. I only remember this trauma waking up with my genitals all exposed and somebody feeling me and this weight. But the worst thing about it, Shaun, was that I'm facing this way and I can feel it coming from behind me. I can't see. I'm too afraid to turn. All I keep doing is fighting this hand off. I wake up the next day and I'm 100 years old. This happened when I was 11. And obviously I didn't realise at the time how much it damaged me, because, it might have only seemed like that much at the age of 11. But by the time I was 35, I was off the grid. I was stamping on people's heads. I was building myself into a monster. I'd got rid of all the pretty boy. I'd got a broken nose, 2 cauliflower ears. I was built like a battleship. I could kill in 30 languages. But I was so insecure and so afraid and so psychotically jealous. But you wouldn't have known it if you'd have sat with me. You probably would have thought I was a nice guy and articulate. But at my worst, if my wife left the room, I was sure it was real. She was betraying me. And it wasn't just betraying me. It was, it was visceral. It wasn't just like there's a romance going on. This was like, cocksucking and, all of the deepest, darkest pornography you can imagine. That's what, in my mind, my wife was doing. Going
back to the grooming then, because some people watching this might be able to learn about the warning signs. What methods were employed in your situation?
The grooming was, it was in a martial arts class, and I was the star of the class, and I followed this guy around like a puppy. I was a babby. I'd not hardly kissed a girl, so I had no idea about anything. He was obviously damaged. That wasn't known. I didn't know that at the time. And I'm in retrospect, I can see that he probably thought he was trying to develop a relationship. I was a child, so it was all how good I am. You're doing really good. And then it was like there's something special about you. You're special. Oh, special, like Bruce Lee special. Like Uchiba special, because Uchiba was like the head of Aikido. And I was like, I felt really good about this. So he started to, invite me to do things. We're going to be fixing mats at the weekend. Come over and help us. And, he would always put me out in the front of the class. He said, Geoff, look how amazing he's doing. Do that break fall again, Geoff. he would always call me out as the, so it was all mostly that kind of thing. And then one day I said to him, when you say I'm special, what do you mean? He'd go, I can't tell you. I told somebody before and they didn't take it very well. But to me, it was still mysterious. It was still like, this is the secrets, the martial arts. He sees something special in me. And of course, that's not what he meant. And then at this night of abuse, when I woke up, look, of course, in retrospect, you look back and you go, it's so obvious. My dad came down. My mum said, in the end, he said, come and stay overnight. We're going to be fixing all the Aikido mats. Come and stay. I've written a play about it called Fragile, about the damage. Come and stay. And I was so excited. He said, we can sleep on the, if you want to, you can sleep on the trampoline. He said, there can be loads of us here. We'll be sleeping all over the place. And I go, oh, wow, So my mum didn't want me to go. And she said to Dad, you go down. And of course, my dad, I love his bones, but my dad was a drinker. So my dad came down with a drink in him and met the guy. And the warning signs were there as well. Because I said to someone at the club, where is he? I won't mention his name because he's dead now, but his family is still around. I wouldn't want to upset his family. But because he's in the changing room. So I said to my dad, we'll go for the change room. So I went into the changing room and my dad goes into the toilet to have a wee. And this guy comes out the shower and he's got a towel just here, just above himself. And he's holding it funny and he's looking at me funny, and I'm thinking, I'm not reading it, but I know it's not right, but I'm not reading it. And then he hears the chain flush and he goes, who's that? And I go, oh, that's my dad. And he went, towel up, suddenly started panicking, got changed, and he was all over my dad. Nice to meet you, Mr. Thompson. But my dad didn't see it. Nobody really saw it. Even people at the club denied it was going on, but it was in plain sight. So this was the kind of thing that was going on. So it was mostly about, I start the play off. In the play, it starts off by a guy who's so damaged that he's sharing his story with a tape recorder. And he doesn't even fucking trust the tape recorder. That's at one point, he throws the tape recorder. If you want to hear a blisteringly real monologue about the damage of abuse and how to exercise it, have a look at Fragile. But the very beginning line is he says, you're special. You are special. That's what he said to me. You're special. And it was that stuck in my mind ever since. But after the abuse, I went away from the club. I must have buried it. I know I woke up the next day, and I woke up, and it was like everyone was sleeping all over the place. But we'd got me in this little tiny room. Again, very suspicious. Nobody said anything. I don't really understand it. I wake up, and his mouth is touching mine. I wake up with his face touching mine, and there's the shock. And I know he's pretending to be asleep. I know he's pretending to have woke up like that, but his face is like that. But his face is so close to me that I can't kiss a girl for the next 5 years without that face. I mean, literally reappearing. I'm kissing a girl in the field, Julie Beach, my first girlfriend. We're 12. And suddenly her face becomes a male face, bristles, and the smell of a male face, a big face. And I can't kiss her, I recoil, and she wonders what's going on. And then I start to physically abuse myself. And then I start to...
Like cutting and stuff?
Yeah, punching things, smashing things. Yeah. Then start to sexually abuse myself, but don't know I'm doing it. I don't understand it. I realise in retrospect that I'd been possessed by this person, or you could say entangled. So even though we were disparate and we were separated by time and distance, we were still as though we were the one thing. So he was actually physically in me. That's what ultimately forgiveness is about, getting that parasite out of you. So periodically for the rest of my life, right up until my 40s, when I wrote Fragile, I was physically abusing myself. This is all physical abuse. What do you think all this is? This is saying, I'm not a girl. I'm not pretty. Don't look at me. I'm dangerous. I'm fucking dangerous. Stay away from me. That's an insecure person building a carapace to protect this child. So for I wasn't even aware I was doing it. It was just that I'd got this life. I was married. I'd got kids. My wife never knew about it, but I was sexually abusing myself as well. So I developed an addiction to pornography. My sympathetic nervous system could go like that. It would go. I would have a rush of passion. And again, I've written about this extensively in the play, if people want to go into it more. And I'd have to find somewhere to masturbate, somewhere quickly. I'd have to do it just to get it out of me. It was so powerful. And I started to physically rape myself as well. Anything phallic, and I'd stick it in myself. I know, forgive me if that's crude and people are watching with their Sunday breakfast.
People appreciate your honesty on this programme.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I only know that I would do it until I bled, and then I would be filled with remorse and deep disgust and shame. And later on, when I really went into the study about it, into the psychology, I did a master's degree in psychology and started to study it. I recognised that part of my brain was trying to bring pleasure to the pain in order to rebalance. And partly I was just possessed. I just got this belief in me, and not just a belief, but a semi-autonomous thought form that this guy had left in me. They call it in the New Testament or the Old Testament, they call it the hot coals. This is left inside you, so it's a parasitical force that fed this person, fed from it over, and even though you are disparate. So every time I physically or sexually abused myself, every time I went into a place of misery or self-disgust, and even more so because it was so secret, I wouldn't tell anybody about it. Even my wife didn't know about it. This voice, the whisperer, in Islam they call them the whisperers, it would go, "You're fucking disgusting." If your wife knew what you did, if your kids knew what you did, if your friends knew what you did, if they knew who you were, and I would be filled with shame. So I'd recognise that this parasite was feeding off my arousal. It was feeding off masturbation, and the masturbation was always extreme. And then it was feeding off the deep shame afterwards. So it was feeding 3 times. I recognised that the only way I was going to get this parasite out of me was to go past all the blame, because I had a lot of anger towards my mum, a lot of anger towards my dad, a lot of anger towards the guy that abused me, a lot of anger at the world, a lot of anger towards anybody that came within my proximity or tried to control me in any way. I remember somebody trying to write over me once on a script, nothing. And I said to the producer, "Don't you fucking let that cunt, don't you let that cunt get inside my pants." I said it. I was nearly crying when I spoke to my wife. I said, "He's written over me. He's written over me." And I was so emotional, Shaun. I said, "He's written over me. He's come in. He's written over me." And it was, I couldn't see it because it was like 30 years apart. And then the producers are thinking, "Why are you reacting? Why you just, if you don't like him writing over you, if there's an etiquette, just say, let's move on." It wasn't writing over me. It was controlling me. I was 11 again. I was 11 years old. So I had to find this kid. In order to get to him, I had to go beyond all the blame. So in the play I write about, I explore it. I tell everybody what I think of them. And ultimately I get to the point where I recognise that everybody did their best. And everybody at some level was a victim, and everybody at some level was damaged. But I wasn't really angry at them. I was angry at God. But I didn't want to say that. I mean, you can imagine, I didn't want to say I was angry at my mum, because I always felt my mum denied it. Didn't happen to you, and they didn't do nothing about it. I always felt that. So when I got to the point when I was able to explore that blame and shout it out on the stage and say, "Why did you do this and why did you do that?" I was able to get beyond it and recognise it was a placeholder. It was a distraction. It was like a way of hiding the core of it. I was able to recognise that I just absolutely loved my mum and I loved my dad, and I recognised that they'd done nothing wrong. And the teacher, I felt compassion for him because I recognised at some level he was a victim. Otherwise he wouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. And he went and ended up killing himself. So, as much as what he did to me was heinous, he was a damaged guy, and I felt compassion. Whether that's right or not, I've just felt compassion.
Before the compassion, how long did it take for you to realise he'd committed a criminal act?
I guess when I started to work on the door, become a bouncer.
In your 20s then, was it?
Yeah, I went into my 20s. I remember recognising he was still working at the same place. So I went to the police, reported it, and I said, this happened when I was a kid. Will you stand up in court? I said, yeah, I will, yeah. Nothing happened. He didn't go anywhere. They said, unless...
didn't do anything with it?
Well, they just said, unless we catch him in the act. They said, we've been after him for years, but unless we catch him in the act... He said, his words were, unless we catch these paedophiles in the act, we can't do much. I know.
Can you believe this? Catch him in the act. We can't do anything unless we catch him in the act.
This is the way...
So all these people get in prison for low-level drug offences, weed possession. And you got to catch a paedophile in the act.
Yeah.
That is insane.
He'd been working in this place for 30 years. I can remember talking to a boxing trainer there once, many, many years afterwards. And after this guy killed himself and after being in the papers, and he just goes, well, I've worked there for years and I've never seen anything. And I said to him, he abused me. He groomed me. And he said, what? I said, he abused me and he groomed me. And he said, what? So it was right in front of him and he'd never seen it. But I know people had seen it. I can tell by the reaction on people's faces. I knew people knew it was going on, but I just think nobody knew what to do with it or how to get rid of it.
Did you see the allegations appeared in the newspapers against him? Is that why he killed himself?
What happened, the first thing that happened was I reached a point where I was starting to write about it, I was starting to talk about it, and I was starting to explore forgiveness because I recognised that the violence was just making it more concentrated. The violence fed it. Any kind of pain, any kind of suffering fed this pain body. It fed off pain. Eckhart Tolle would call it a pain body, and he says pain bodies feed off pain bodies. Suffering feeds off suffering. So I recognised to go to another level, in order to remove this parasite for me, I had to find another level. I had to trust in reciprocity, I had to understand Dharma, understand that there was a law and that the law would balance its books with or without my witness. I didn't need to see the revenge. I needed to recognise, in order to get rid of him, I needed to forgive him. But forgiveness in the sense of give him over to reciprocity, give him back. In the rabbis in the Old Testament would say that if you see somebody that's hurt you, see somebody that's damaged you, run to him and try and serve him because he has something of yours and you need to get it back. And you'll only get it back if you are kind, if you can find kindness or compassion. So he's saying that he has something of yours and you need to get it back. And when you get it back, you'll be able to give him back what he's given you. So there's an exchange. So when I finally met this guy in a cafe when I was at my physical peak...
This is the abuser?
Yeah, I met him. I bumped into him, yeah.
Oh, just by chance?
Serendipity. I was starting to talk about forgiveness. I was starting to talk about Budo. I was starting to talk about, higher levels of combat, internal combat. And again, this egregore, this being, this energy, heard me. And it put me in a cafe opposite him when I was probably about 40. And I remember looking across and looking, and it was like a no man's land between me and him. It was like to go over, I'd have to climb out of a dugout with a bayonet. That's how I was terrified. I could feel the adrenaline from my soles of my feet to the top of my head. And I knew I had to go over. I was so emotional, I could have cried or lashed out. I didn't know what, but I knew at that time I was 16 stone, very physical, at the height of my powers physically.
Did it flash in your head that you wanted to kill him?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I innately knew that if I did, I would never get rid of him. It would feed something in him and it would feed something in me and it would never go. I innately knew that I needed to give him over to reciprocity. So I went over.
That's not easy though, is it?
No, well, that's the whole idea. This voice was saying to me, you want hard training? You want it tough? You know how to do the physical stuff. You're falling over that stuff. You're doing it all around the world. It's easy for you. We want to take you to another level. We want to go to Budo. Budo means no arms. So I know what I've got to do, but I doubt whether I've got the ability to do it because I'm trembling. I'm 11 again. So anyway, I walk over.
What's going through your head as you're walking over?
Just, I could go away. No one would know. I could walk out. No one would know. No one would know I've seen him. but I knew I had to face it.
And had he not seen you?
No, he didn't know who I was. He had no idea who I was.
You looked a lot different.
I was like a little pretty girl last time he'd seen me.
Yeah.
So I went over and he was just looked up at me and I said, "You don't remember me?" And I said, "But when I was a boy," I said, "you abused me." And he went to stand up and I said, "Sit down." And it was certainty. He felt certainty and he sat down. I said, "You fucked me. You fucked my life." I said, "And you need to know that I forgive you. I forgive you." I was telling my friend Gaz Banton this. Gaz is a sergeant major in the SBS, and he said, "That's interesting that he said it twice." He said, "When we went into battle, we were in the SAS," he said, "the one thing we always repeated was our mission statement, so we never forgot. If things fell apart and things went, it was a shitstorm," he said, "we always repeated the mission twice." So my repeating it twice was my certainty. I am not letting you off. I'm going to give you over to reciprocity. I'm breaking this feeding pipe between me and you. I'm going to take my will back, my autonomy, and I'm going to return the burning coals. That's what they call it. There's a line from St. Paul: "If thine enemy hungers, feed him. If he thirsts, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap fires of coal on his head." And what it means is you take back your autonomy and you give him back the burning coals of abuse that he took from you. It's a literal thing. So that belief, you go, "I don't believe this. I'm going to give it to you." When you offer food and drink, it's an allegory. It means you offer truth. I'm going to offer you truth. You're in my proximity. You're here. You are in need of truth. You're hungry of truth, and I'm going to tell you the truth. You've rationalised what's happened to me and to all the other kids you abuse. You've rationalised it. You've made it okay in your head. But the truth is, you fucked me. You damaged me. You damaged all these other kids. And that's not me you've got to deal with. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you deal with God, the universe, cause and effect, the law of retribution, the law of balance, whatever you want to call it. I trust it. I'm going to give you back to that. And I'm going to leave it with you.
What was his body language like as you were talking to him?
He just shrunk. He was a big guy, but he shrunk. But I was so certain. Well, I said to you before about certainty comes from the word yakim. It means it's an attribute of God. He felt God in me. He felt certainty. Certainty is powerful. Certainty clears rooms. Certainty disappears anything. It is so powerful because you are getting, it's like a hologram. You're getting a tiny, even though you've only got a tiny bit of it, it contains all of it. So the certainty made him cower.
Was that after you forgave him? But
Yeah.
prior to saying that, was he a bit on guard in case there was an altercation?
There was no sense that it was going to be an altercation. I was just certain that I had command of it. I was certain I had truth, and all I delivered was the truth, and that was the burning coal. So I gave him back the parasite, and I took back my autonomy. And as I went to walk away, he stood up and put his hand out, and his fingers were trembling. And he was asking me to shake his hand. He was begging me to cement it, accept it. So on one level, he was just saying, please shake my hand as a gesture of friendship. But on the other hand, he was saying, I accept your forgiveness. And that's a big thing. It wouldn't have been a conscious thing, but when somebody accepts your forgiveness, it means they let themselves be taken back to reciprocity. So he's basically saying, yes, I agree. We're going to sever this bond. We're going to sever this tie. You're giving me back the lie that I gave you. You're giving me back the damage I've given you, and I'm giving you back your autonomy. And that's what I did. I took my autonomy back. And the autonomy is the only thing we've got. It's our soul. It's our will. It's the only real thing we've got. It's our geometric point. It's the point where everything comes from. So I took back my autonomy and I gave him back his hot coals. And then I'll tell you the story. It's a very, very powerful story. In my head, I'm thinking, I've done that. Job done. That's ticked off. Move on. I don't want to talk about this again. I don't want to talk about the abuse again. I don't want to talk about all this stuff again. I'm tired of it. I'm at a film screen in London with the Shamazian brothers. And they've done a film called The Carriageway. It's a short film. And it was amazing. And I remember looking at it and saying to my wife, God, can you imagine what they do with a film of mine? With one of my scripts, if they did really do something with it. Anyway, we're getting to go. And the Shamazian brothers came over to me and said, would you write a film for us? And I said, what have you got in mind? That handshake film. I said, what handshake film? In Watch My Back. You talk about meeting the abuser, and you talk about shaking his hand. And I said, oh, you know, I said, I've done all that. I said, listen, I automatically started to say, listen, get some money, raise some money. If you raise some money and commission me, I'll write it, but I don't really want to go back there again. So I went to my wife and I said, oh, they want me to write about the handshake. And I said, I can't go back there again. And then I just remembered thinking, where's the power? The power's always hidden in the fear. The power's always in the middle of the fear. The power is always contained in the kernel of the depression. It's always contained in the thing that you want to run away from. So I've made this habit in my life of turning towards the things I'm afraid of, because I recognise the gold is actually hidden inside the fear. You just have to absorb it all before it'll come out. So I go back to them and say, listen, I'll write it for you. I'll write that film. So I wrote a film called Romans 12:20, which is the quote I just said from St. Paul and his letters or his epistles to the Romans. But as I was writing the film, I finished the first draft. I was very nervous about it because I was thinking, oh gosh, it's going to bring all this stuff out again. I've got to look at it. And I can see now what God was doing for me. He was going, you've done great. You've broke that bond and he's gone, but you've still got residue in you. You've still got stuff in the plumbing. We need to pull all of this out. So he's like a pin in a crab shell. So I write this film. And the day I finished it, Sharon said, my wife said, have you seen what's in the paper? I said, what? And that guy who abused you, he's just been caught. He's been caught for a series of crimes in the 70s and he's going to court. And I said, wow, that's really weird. Well, in the film, I'd got my abuser. I'd fictionalised it, but I'd got my abuser who killed himself after he's forgiven. So this guy gets, you know, he's got to go to court. He's got a series of crimes, one against his own nephew. He had a disabled nephew. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, we're starting to cast. And I'm talking to a guy on the phone whose son was interested in playing the part in Romans 12:20. Romans 12:20 is online if anybody wants to watch it. They can go and watch it. It's free. And I was talking to this guy who knew nothing about my abuser, knew nothing about him. And he just said, oh, did you see in the paper so-and-so? Because this guy was well known in the city. And he killed himself, hung himself in London. So I'd written in the film that he killed himself. And then when I wrote the film, he actually killed himself.
So you've given an analysis of the handshake as a future person looking back at it. You broke that down excellently. What I'm interested in is, at that moment in time of the handshake, when you saw that hand sticking out, did it repulse you, or were you instinctively thinking that the right thing to do was shake his hand? What actually went through your head at that moment?
I was certain, Shaun. I knew.
It was certain.
I knew that if I didn't shake his hand, it wasn't complete. Yeah. I needed to be certain that I wanted to break this bond, and I needed to trust in reciprocity. Reciprocity is a scientific law. With every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. They call it the law of compensation. I understand reciprocity because I've been a violent man and I've watched every one of my crimes come back to me. I've watched them like a karmic boomerang come back to me, and I've watched all of my friends meet their own reciprocity. I can't hide from reciprocity. So I had enough knowledge of reciprocity to trust that if I let this guy go, I didn't know what would happen. I just knew that he would have to face whatever he's done at some point, and I didn't need to witness it. Some people do need their day in court. Some people need to demand an apology. Some people need to go to the police, although you can do all those things as well. Forgiveness is about letting go of the anger, letting go of the hate, letting go of the dissonance. Ultimately, it's about letting go of the burning coal of lie, of mistruth that's planted inside you. It's literally I always say that abuse is a possession and forgiveness is an exorcism. It's literal. It's not, it actually is a semi-autonomous thought form that resides inside you and feeds off all the misery it can bring to you. So at the time, I just knew that if I didn't shake his hand, like Siddhartha says, I don't know if you've ever read Hermann Hesse. He did a book called Siddhartha about the Buddha before he became enlightened. He said, if we don't meet our fears and see them through to their end, we'll have to go back and do it all over again. And I just can't do that. So I thought, I've got to finish this. It doesn't matter to me that people don't understand what I'm doing. I understand. It doesn't matter that people think I've let him off. I know that I've dealt him the hardest blow. True revenge is when you forgive, because you're separating them from you, and you're giving them over to reciprocity. It's the ultimate power, but you have to have enough understanding of reciprocity to trust it. And most people don't do the rigor on reciprocity. They just think people get away with things, but nobody does. Nobody escapes the human condition. Nobody escapes causality. Nobody does. I know that firsthand because I've done so many things wrong. So I knew if I didn't shake his hand, I knew I'd have to go back and do it all over again.
Wow, what a powerful story this is. All right, going back to the early years, then you said, problems with trying to kiss a girlfriend at a young age. You mentioned the insane jealousy. Did relationships normalize for you at some point?
It was two lives. And I never knew this until retrospect. At the time, I didn't know, I didn't know what was going on. There was two lives. There was my normal life, where I'm, a husband, working in a factory, sweeping floors, working in a chemical plant, got beautiful kids, training in karate, trying to build myself up physically, know that I'm afraid of something, but don't really understand what. But I'm also aware that just beyond my grasp is this infinite potential. I'm stuck in a terraced house, in a shitty job, in an unhappy marriage, and I know there is freedom out there, and I know that, but I can't reach it because I'm too afraid. Because every time I go to the periphery of my boundaries, I'm knocked back by terror and then by depression, and it kicks sand in my face and says, "Don't ever go to the edge again, because you're not good enough for the edge." I had to learn to eat fear. I had to learn to absorb fear. Like Ushaba says, you have to absorb 99% of it before it gives up the ghost. So I was just this ordinary guy who wanted to expand and do more, but I had no control of my will. So running alongside my life was the physical abuse. So I'd go from rolling around the house and kind of a little bit bipolar to to smashing furniture up to, into matchsticks because of this volcanic temper. And then if any little change in my life, tiny little changes, if we got a new guy working with us, it would trigger fear in me. It would trigger anxiety in me because I just couldn't cope with change. I couldn't cope with anything that threatened my security, anything that made me feel as though somebody might take advantage. Even though I didn't link it to the abuse, anything that threatened my safety, my security, filled me with anxiety. I managed to work, and I managed to continue to work through these depressions, but it was a very miserable way to live. It was only when I had this one final depression, and we were talking about the sexual abuse, the self-abuse on myself, that was just done privately. That was done when nobody was looking, and I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I just thought it was a depraved part of me. I thought I was depraved, and of course I would have these lusts, this self-abuse, and then this tremendous shame afterwards. All of it was feeding on me, and I might feed on me for a month, and then I'd be away, and then I'd go, I'm not going to do that again, I'm going to get away from all that. Then it would capture me again, and I'd find myself running to look at pornography. I'd find myself running to sexually abuse myself, and then afterwards going through that same cycle, but no control of it. It was definitely like a possession. So that was going on all the time, and I didn't link it to anything else. It was only when I had this final depression, and I was debilitated by it, and it was just feels like the world was going to end, and I felt like I was being assailed from every angle. I just remember finding rage from somewhere. Bump! I just went, I've had enough. That's enough. I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm fucking tired of living like this. Please forgive my swearing. But that's what I said. I'm tired of living like this. So I said to this depression, come in, have a sit down, have a cup of tea, stay as long as you want. Stay as long as you want. Every time I tried to run away from it, it got fat on me running. Every time I begged and cowered and tried to scrub it out of my body, it got fat on my pain. So I just said, come in, sit down, have a cup of tea, do you want to meet my wife? This is the conversation I had in my head. Stay as long as you want. I didn't realise until 30 years later that was the technique St. Francis used. That was the technique that Milarepa used. When Milarepa, the great Buddhist saint, murderer turned saint, was assailed by 4 demons in his cave, he tried every magic trick to get them out and they wouldn't go. So in the end he goes, oh, well, stay then. Bump. As soon as he didn't care.
It was a technique used by that psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz as well. I think he called it paradoxical intention.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, paradoxical intention. The thing you're afraid of, invite it in. Just curiosity. We go, oh, that's feeling again. There's that depression again. Let's not cover it with tablets. Let's not cover it with a blanket or alcohol or sex. Let's just have a look at it. Let's follow it a little bit. I notice it's got its own voice. I notice it speaks to me. It's got a sub-vocalization. Let's have a look at that. The moment you notice that it notices that it's been noticed, it goes, oh, I've been noticed. If you get a chance to read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, it's the best book in the world at the moment on this technique. It's the best book on identifying pain bodies, semi-autonomous thought forms, and how to dissolve them by not engaging them, by not identifying with them, by building an eye wall and observing. He calls it the observer self. So I had this tremendous rage and this, oh, I'm tired of running from you, come and have a sit down. And as soon as he did that, it lessened. And then with this rage came an idea. I would say this is my first communication with my soul. So I got this seed of an idea fell into my mind. I'm going to draw a pyramid on a piece of paper. I'm going to write down everything I'm afraid of. Least fear on the bottom step, worst fear on the top step, and I'm going to confront them systematically. I'm going to get desensitized to the feelings of adrenaline. I realised I wasn't really afraid of things. I was afraid of the feelings that the things brought up in me. So I thought if I can get desensitization to the feelings, then I won't be afraid anymore. So the moment I started to turn into my fears, they scattered like cats. Ushiba said, again, I read this many years later, he said, fear's an illusion, but it'll hold its form until you absorb 99% of it. He said, when you absorb 99% of it, he said, this 3-dimensional monster will become a 2-dimensional cartoon and it will dissipate. But you have to be prepared to sit in that feeling until it dissipates. And then when it dissipates, it gives you the kernel of gold. It gives you the message. So when I sat in this idea came through, build a pyramid, climb the pyramid, and when you've done that, share it with people. I wrote a book called Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People about this technique that I'd found. I just found it just dropped into my head. So I started to, as soon as I started to confront the fears, the depression just went. Because he's suddenly like, well, he's got the message now. He's we're not a harbinger of doom, although we will claim him. If he doesn't claim us, we'll claim him. We'll absorb him. We'll take over this body. We'll possess him. But if he doesn't, then we'll just scoot off. So I started to confront these things. Every time I confronted a fear and got desensitized to it, the nature of the fear was liberated. And the effulgence that was locked in the fear, that little nugget of gold, came over to me. So every time I overcame a fear, my awareness expanded. My understanding expanded. My courage expanded. My wisdom expanded. I started to get certainties. Certainties are gold. People will travel across the world to touch the hand of certainty, because certainty is an experiential thing. It isn't something you're going to get in a vision or from a flash. It's something that you have to go out and experience. And when you've got it, it's if you want to, it's something you can sell, something you can put into a book. Something you can teach your certainty to other people. They won't get certainty from it, but it will lead them to find their own certainty.